Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Ninja Steel Episode 3. So this was an okay episode. This was sort of our first, foray into this regular status quo, since we did the pilot, we're kind of seeing what an average episode would look like, kind of an average fillery, not the Dimension from Magicians, that would be fun, but, filler episode type thing where nothing really that significant happened. I mean, technically the Megazord debuted and stuff, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, it was okay. I guess I'll start with the things I didn't like to get it out of the way. Same as the last 2 weeks, I absolutely despise Monty and Victor. I don't like them at all. They really get on my nerves, and they were in this episode quite a bit, because their main plot was that they wanted to get more views than the Power Rangers, and they wound up with Brody's datacom to find info on how to do that. And the concept, I'll admit, is kind of funny, of the Bulk and Skull-like characters trying to get more views and popularity than the Power Rangers, but it's just not executed funny for me. It was just more like, lol, I got a facial. I just don't like them. That was my least favorite part of every episode so far. And like I said, I would hope that they would grow on me in some form, but at the moment they're not. Especially since I think the show does have the recipe for comedic elements that don't involve having those two specific characters, which I'll get into in a second. The only other thing that bothered me about the episode was it was just sort of one of those classic cheesy morals, and there was a little bit good about it in terms, at least it wasn't, the don't cheat plot wasn't only about school. It sort of merged into the Ranger field of you gotta call in the team and not just rely on answers from the datacom. And I think it actually had potential to be a really, decent, almost good filler plot of standard information's great, this guy's weak to water or whatever, but you kind of got to learn to improvise and work with the team and think on your feet also. Instead of a standard don't cheat lesson, I think it could have been merged into don't just rely on hard facts. Kind of like there's, episode tropes in all kinds of shows where you'll have the one person that just uses a specific strategy that's by the book, and it won't work because he's not learning to improvise. I think there could have been something cool there. So I was kind of glad that it wasn't strictly about school, but it was still kind of cheesy and some cheesy dialogue. At the end, they're like, we're an even greater power together. That's like saying me and my 5 friends are smarter than all the information that's available on the internet. I mean, that's true for some of the stupid stuff you see on the internet, but in general, and it's also funny because it reminded me of being in school when I was younger, when the internet was just coming up because I'm an old timer. But the teachers would always say, you can't use a calculator, Dawson. I wasn't called Dawson back then, but because you're not going to be able to have a calculator anywhere in life. And then cell phones happened, and you have a calculator for literally any problem. Before it was just, oh, I can do multiplication on the go. Now it's hey, you want to know who the Queen of France was in such and such year? I can tell you right now. Or do you want to know, what year Danny DeVito was in this movie? Boom, you're done. So it's funny, especially since when the teacher caught him with the datacom, she was like, a device that tells you everything. I've never heard of such a thing. I'm like, that's literally your phone, or iPad, or computer, or your watch, your Apple Watch, or a smartwatch. Seriously. It was funny because it reminded me of that. But anyway, there was stuff that I liked in the episode. I really like, superficial stuff, I guess, to start. I really like the training suits they have, which you can see under the morph, I believe, but they're really cool looking. They have the symbol on them, they're a little bit more padded. They have a cool, almost movie-esque version of the lightning bolt on their legs. And it looks like they have hoods and those little, sweet vicious ninja things to put over their mouths. So I really hope we get them in the field sometime. It would be cool to see civilian battles like the ninja suits from MMPR Season 3. Or even I'd be happy with just them putting the hoods and stuff on if they do sparring. But I like those a lot. The standard Megazord cockpit mode debuted in this episode, and I like it. It's probably not my favorite. I think my favorite's still Samurai's Mega Mode. Not Ultra. No, but I think it looks pretty cool. I like the Megazord cockpit. I like that we got it at the start. They didn't really fully explain why it's there, in any kind of detail, but I just kind of assume, kind of like with Mega Mode, that it's the way they control the Megazord. And honestly, I'm fine with it debuting at the beginning like that, and I just kind of headcanon it in a way, combined with their explanation that, for me, it's oh, that's how the suit knows what they're doing, since it's so motion-based and not they have a control panel. So that's my reasoning, and I like that it comes from the beginning, because Dino Chargers was really awkward. It just randomly debuted, and then it was only because it made them stronger, and then the same thing with the other mode, and it was just really awkward. It's still a damn shame that we get these beautiful original suit things, and then they're only in the cockpit. how much money, like what's the money logic there that we couldn't have a couple fight scenes outside? Speaking of, they also have a specific sword, just like they got with Dino Superdrive, which I'm kind of okay on the design. I'm like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But the thing that's kind of cool about it is when they do the finisher, they like rev it up, and it's got like a chainsaw gimmick of like spinning little, almost like tiny chainsaw shurikens going throughout it, which is really cool, but it's only in the Megazord. Like, how cool would that be to see in footage for, you know, a final finisher against a monster? So that's kind of a shame. Also, on positive sides, I really do like the setting and like sort of the general tone when they don't have Monty and Victor on. Like, I like the school setting. They kind of showed the little shack area where they hang out. I like the other part of the base we got to see, how they go through the vents. I just kind of like the general vibe they have going right now, which is kind of a plus. So I enjoy being in that world a bit, just watching it. I still kind of, even though without the old monster suits, I still like the concept of the Galaxy game show and stuff, and I don't remember if I mentioned that last week, but I do like that not only is the original idea, but it adds a bit of fanfare to everything. Like, you see them not only watching the battle, but there's like, you know, a vote on whether to gigantify it, and like we saw in this episode, they chose not to gigantify this guy, and they brought another thing out, and obviously, you know, they mess around with footage, but it's still interesting to see because it changes up the norm a little bit, so that's all kind of neat stuff. I didn't even think about last week that they actually like altered the footage to not debut the Megazord last week, which actually is really neat because, as I mentioned, one of the things I liked about the pilot is that it's not like a Sentai pilot where it's rushed, and I like that they even held off on doing the Megazord in this one, and I like that slower pacing, which is nice. Although it was weird the way they decided to do it. I kind of assumed that like back at the base, Mick was gonna like look into the prism and see the Megazord and tell him about it, but they just kind of brainstormed it, and Sarah was even like, so like a Megazord, and it was really awkward and weird, and I'm not fully on board with it, but I didn't hate it. It was kind of weird seeing it from that perspective, because usually it's just so matter of fact that you have these Zords and they combine, or like the Astro Megazord, but like, the way they described it, it was like a perspective I'd never seen. Like, it was just, oh, we just had this idea on our own to combine it into one Megazord. Like, it made the words sound different in my head, if that makes any sense. It was just kind of weird, but it was kind of a weird, kind of quick and weird way to debut it, but I like that they at least held off on it, which is my point. And Mick actually kind of served as a solid semi-mentor to Brody. It was kind of a cheesy end result, but I like his character. And that's something I was going to bring up lastly, is kind of in reference to my beginning negative. Is a negative and positive at the same time, is that Monty and Victor, I just don't like their comedy, and I think it's outdated and unused and annoying, and it like gets in the way of what I'm enjoying about the episode. And at the same time, I can't help but think, since we're in the school, we probably should have a couple characters from the school that stand out besides the Rangers, but I just don't like them. And I just also don't feel they're needed, because honestly, Mick really functions well as sort of the mentor slash like, not really mentor, but mentor-esque sometimes, slash, you know, like the techie guy. And he also has some funny moments, because Kelson's a funny guy. He had funny moments last week. And I think he can bring comedic elements into it. And the Rangers themselves have had some funny lines, like last week's Brody's Out of Space line. And even this week's, one of my favorite little funny moments was when he was cheating using the datacom, and his answer was like 30 Earth minutes. And it was funny because that's probably the way the comm talked to him. And like, so my point is that there's comedic energy that can be had there between the 5 Rangers and Mick without the need of these other characters. So yeah, but that's pretty much about it. My random thoughts. Overall, I thought it was an okay episode. Didn't blow me away. Didn't like it as much as last week. I'd say it's roughly on par with the first episode, but I'm not absolutely hating it yet. I'm just kind of taking it week by week, and glad that I'm not full on, you know, hating like I was in the end of Dino Charge. You know what I mean? You know how it is. But anyway, overall, I'd probably give the episode about 6.5, I guess. That sounds fair. But anyway, until next time, make sure you got the Crazy Podcast at writersrangersrambles.com. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.